What's the most ridiculous NSFW thing you've ever seen someone do in public? Story 1. When I first moved to a big city that had a public train system in 2001, I was so pumped to ride it. My first trip wound up being fairly packed. And I was standing across from a mother who was absorbed in her PDA and not paying attention to her young son, who was making concerning whining noises. So I look around a bit as one does, and when I look back in front of me, the kid was squatting with his pants around his ankles and proceeded to take a poop which landed horizontally on the rim of his pants and then fell into his underwear. You can imagine the symphony of audible disgust from everybody around who was smacked with the smell. The kid yanked his pants up in panic, and I'll never forget a 40-something blue-collar fella beside me said, "Hey lady, your kid just took a big honkin' dookie in his pants." She grabbed her son by the arm and stormed to another section of the train until their stop. If you're out there, man, I freaking remember you fondly with laughter. Story 2. I watched a goth girl walk another goth girl down an extremely busy street in my city's bar district on a leash and collar, and it stuck with me for close to 30 years. Story 3. When I moved to the Bay Area 25-ish years ago, my Midwestern mom came out to help me get settled just a few weeks after I'd unpacked. I took her for a tour of SF's greatest sights. We ended up stopped at a red light near the Castro. In the crosswalk directly in front of us, a man was walking another man on a leash, who was wearing only a chest harness, chaps, and a fully zipped head mask bag. I then got to explain to my mom how it's not illegal to be naked or show your genitalia in San Francisco, but it's never the people you want to see naked. Story 4. Saw a guy throw a computer monitor out of the 23rd floor of an office building, then a huge office chair, and then himself. The building had 3 flagpoles in front of the building, and he barely missed the poles. Saw a guy get shot by another guy with road rage in the parking lot of a Walmart. He died. I watched him bleed out. At a stoplight and saw this chick giving this guy head and pop up and wave. At a hotel, saw this couple getting freaky in tree jacuzzi. At a concert and saw people having the dirty in the porta potty, totally gross. Seen a ton of people shoot up and snort crap in various places. I saw someone set themselves on fire because they didn't want to shave. I used to do PC repairs and went into people's homes and saw some freaky stuff. One guy had this chick in a dirty swing. Like, you know I'm coming, these visits are scheduled. Worked for another company and this guy's laptop was messed up, turned it onto his home-made gay porn DVD. I promptly opened the DVD drive and handed the DVD to him. His look was priceless. Story 5. I was traveling around the Middle East and Asia and had ended up at a camp in the desert of India after a camel safari. This was after about 6 months on the road. At the camp were a bunch of gap year students who had arrived like 2 days earlier, and they were still in "we're on holidays" mode and absolutely insufferable. They had all bought these cheap turbans they were wearing and doing funny Indian accents. I was having a quiet beer with an Aussie guy named Jim and a Kiwi called Sumo, observing the shenanigans, when we see one of the girls in this group dancing around the fire, doing an imitation Hindu dance. Some aspect of Vishnu must have disapproved, because part of her turban came unwound and dipped into the fire. It didn't catch, just started smoldering, but her idiot boyfriend tried putting it out by blowing on it. And suddenly flames started licking up the fabric, slowly creeping up towards her head. Instead of ripping the turban off, the girl grabbed the nearest liquid she saw and dumped it over herself and the fire. Turned out to be vodka. A second later her whole head was on fire. I have to admit I froze completely, but luckily for the girl, Sumo came hurtling out of nowhere and rugby tackled her, burying her head in the sand. She lived, but that was the end of her Indian adventure, and she's probably living with the scars to this day. I used to live downtown in my city, and every morning I would go for a walk to grab a coffee and get some fresh air. One morning I noticed a lot of PPL looking at something. When I finally realized it, there was a man jerking off to a real estate sign with the picture of a woman on it. I continued walking, and when I got to my coffee shop there was 2 cops right out front. They had a guy pulled over for having an exhaust that was too loud, or maybe his windows were too tinted, I can't remember. I said to them, "Hey guys, I know you are dealing with a dangerous criminal here, but there's legit a guy down the street jerking off in front of everyone." They let Buddy off and stormed off. The guy who was pulled over thanked me and bought my coffee, haha. When I was walking back past the scene, the homeless guy had moved down the street to the big fountain out front of the library. He was ass naked now in the fountain, stroking it. Cops didn't know what to do, haha. I was sitting having a beer outside in the gas lamp district and watched a drop-dead gorgeous blonde having an argument with her boyfriend, and for some reason she stripped off her dress, handed it to him, and strutted naked down past us as the boyfriend lost his goddamn mind. I am guessing it was a breaking point or something where he was telling her what to wear or something and she went, "You want it? Here you go." She was brilliant and walked down like she was going down a catwalk, high heels, clasp bag, and nothing but a smile. My friend and I raised a toast as she passed, turned the corner, and was gone. One of my better beer stories. Had a friend do something similar. The guy she was dating was going on and on about how, "I bought you that dress and jewelry you are wearing." She proceeded to take off the dress and all the jewelry, threw it at him, and walked out to her car and left. It was amazing. He was a horrible and abusive man. We had been hoping for her to leave him for years, and something about that night was the thing that finally did it. I worked at a Hilton hotel in college. One day a fella brought a prostitute into the hotel, but decided he'd rather not pay. Apparently, the best way he could figure to go about this was to shove said prostitute out of the room completely naked. Took a wrong turn on the main floor and started into the restaurant until she realized there was a whole bunch of people in there. She was eventually able to dive behind the front desk and someone was able to get a robe around her. All the while she was running around causing a scene. Dude quickly and quietly packed his shit and snuck out the stairwell to a side exit. Somewhere out there is a story of me. Long-time distance runner who chose trails through nature. Once I had an attack of diarrhea while running that could not be stopped. I got off the trail into the woods some distance until certain I was far enough off the trail that I would not be seen. I removed my shorts, held them in my hand, bent over, and noisily sprayed pressurized liquid dough to a great distance behind me. I then hear voices shrieking in horror and see that I had run to the edge of a campground, in particular a campsite with some family, who had a perfect view. I looked behind me right into their eyes mid-spray. I ran off knowing that it would be the story of their summer vacation no matter what natural wonders and beauty they took in, and am sure the story is told today. I wonder if they asked for a different site. I didn't shit in it, but I was maybe 20 feet and quite possibly stunk the place up. I had some concern that authorities would look for me, but figured they would be looking for someone from the campground. In college I was hanging out in someone's living room watching a movie with a bunch of people I'd just met. The host's cousin starts being weird, shoving people off her couch, and the cousin was obviously upset, like, "Why are you being an asshole right now?" Then a few minutes later, she'd thrown her blanket over my lap and started blowing me. I had no idea what to do. I didn't know this girl's name. I'd just met her an hour ago, and didn't realize she'd decided I was her new boyfriend. Someone looked back and in 20 seconds, I'm sitting in a living room with 20 people watching me get a blowjob. She must have gotten embarrassed, because she stopped, and I quickly zipped up. There's this couple that caused a disturbing scene in the hotel I was having a meeting. So, after the ambulance and cops were coming etc. Finally I got the story. The boy threatened the girl to post their sex videos online if she doesn't want to have sex with him that night. After they did it, he kept posting it anyway, sharing it with some group. So, the girl just cut his dick off. An ambulance was called. Police were called. The girl went to jail. The boy didn't make it for losing too much blood. So I was quite traumatized to see a scene where there were people with blood all over their clothes. I was out drinking, talking with some friends outside when some drunk chick came up and goes, "If I show you a title, will you show me your tits? I'm a fat guy." I was like, only if it works the other way around too. She pulls her skirt up and shows me an ass tat. She had plenty of others she could have showed me, but hey, why not? Then I showed her my only tat. It's on my wrist. She then got out her tits. Was a good night. Years ago I was an engineer at Cisco and this vendor was doing a presentation. One of the reps, a young woman pretty much out of college, was sitting in the front row of a presentation room and didn't notice that her laptop screensaver was pulling pictures from her private folder. I got to watch a pretty enticing bondage slideshow before she looked down and immediately slammed the laptop shut. Nobody in that room said a thing. Professionals through and through.